If your mixes sound muddy, it usually boils down to just one thing: relationships. And no, not this kind of relationship. I'm talking about the relationship between all of the instruments going on in your mix, because the reality is things don't sound muddy by themselves. They usually start sounding muddy when you add everything else together. And you can fix this with just one EQ move, or really start to identify where the other problems might be with just one move. Let me show you how this actually works. So imagine we have some guitars, some bass, and some drums all playing together. They are all sharing a lot of frequencies, maybe 200 hertz up to 6,000 hertz, maybe 80 hertz, 60 hertz, all the way up to 7,000 hertz. Lots of ranges between the drums, bass, and guitars. And they're all taking up their own slice. Now, here's the thing. Each instrument is overlapping with another one, and we are getting what's called masking. And so each instrument could overwhelm another one. Bass can overwhelm the guitars, the drums can overwhelm the bass can overwhelm the drums, and we'll solo the bass, it sounds good, and then we bring it back in context and it's just an absolute disaster. And that's because of the relationship it has with all of the other instruments that are directly around it. Nothing exists by itself. Let's say we have a melody line here that's going bum, 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 and we also have a harmony that's being played right underneath it. Well, here's the thing about harmony. If we eliminate the melody, we're just left with a harmony. But that's going to sound like the melody to everybody else, because harmony only exists in the relationship with that melody. And it's the same thing in your mix. If you look at your EQ, you can see that there are notes relative to each frequency on your EQ. So 50 hertz and 100 hertz is an octave, 5,000 hertz and 10,000 hertz is an octave, and you can see the relationship with the actual notes. So if you have some frequencies going on in the low end with your bass, and those same frequencies are being played in the guitar, they may sound good by themselves, but the moment that you actually put them together, that's when things become a big problem. So how do we eliminate this? Well, this is one EQ move that I absolutely love to do. It helps me identify the issue, and then I go from there. So the first thing that I do is I throw an EQ on the master bus right at the end of the rest of my chain. And then I take a high cut and I turn it down to around 300, 400 hertz. So what I'm doing is I'm completely eliminating everything going on in the top end, so it makes me focus on what's actually going on in the low end. Let's take a listen to what that sounds like. So we can see that the bass and the kick are really kind of overwhelming each other. It's starting to sound just like a muddy mess. And even in the context of the rest of the track, when we bring things in, it might not be as noticeable. But once we clear out the distraction of all those high frequencies, now it's extremely noticeable. And so what are we going to do to fix this? I'm glad you asked that question. Which, by the way, if you like things like this and you want more music tips, I have a newsletter called Music Minute that has over 10,000 readers. Every single week, I send multiple different music tips and mixing tips directly to your inbox, so that way you can get better music faster. It takes less than a minute or so to read. It's completely free. Links to that will be down in the description below. So now that we've identified what the issue is, let's fix it. So first, let's leave this on, this EQ on here, so that way we can only listen to the low end. And so I have Synth Magic Maker, which is a synth that sounds like this. I also have a bass guitar that sounds like this. And of course, they're all fighting with each other, and they're fighting with the kick. I want that kick to be the hero of this, and so I'm going to make sure that everything is being focused away from the kick, so that way the kick can be the main focus. So I'm going to turn my EQ back on here on the master bus, and then I'm going to load in multipass, which is just allowing me to add a compressor to anything below 200, 300 hertz-ish. And then what I'm doing is I'm sidechaining this to the kick. So every time the kick hits, I am turning everything at around 300 hertz and below down. This is what it sounds like on the bass here. So I'm leaving the rest of the frequencies alone, but those lower ones are getting out of the way of that kick. I'm doing the same thing over here on this synth layer as well. So now let's listen to this with this EQ on and notice how things are starting to duck out of the way of that kick, and that kick is starting to be a bit more present in the mix. So now with the EQ off, let's listen to it now. Sounding significantly better. Remember, this is all about managing relationships and not about stacking more EQ on top of EQ and soloing things. You need to make sure that you're checking things in context. It's all about the relationship between one instrument and another instrument and how they work together. And if you want more tips like this sent directly to your inbox every single week, links to that will be down in the description below. It's completely free. I have over 10,000 readers of Music Minute, and I think you're really going to enjoy it. Otherwise, you can go watch this video here. This is the biggest vocal mistake that self-producing artists make. I've seen it again and again and again. And so I had to make this video, hopefully, to stop the issue entirely. I'll see you over there. Now, as always, go create.